But you want to go ahead and move to your main topic?
All right. So the second main topic is going to be about gain stacking.
Okay.
Because I think it's really common for other people to really struggle with like what overdrive is going to sound good with what. Also, it kind of helps me like thinking about my pedal board, like think it through a little more.
Yeah.
So how do you approach gain stacking? What are some things that you're looking for to buy the next pedal for you? How do you go about it?
Okay, so I've kind of got, I think I do it different than a lot of people suggest out there on the interwebs. So a lot of people like to go highest drive first, and they go to lighter drives as they go and boost pedals at the end. That way they can boost into a clean amp, and the pedals that are after that highest drive are actually boosting their level up, making them louder.
All right, I need you to say that slower because I couldn't comprehend it.
I think
in the moment.
I think I do
Don't
it,
judge.
I think I do it different than a lot of people on the internet suggest. A lot of people I've heard on the internet suggest and talk about this stuff in the past. They talk about putting your highest gain pedal first and going to lighter gain pedals as you go.
The reason, because it adds more volume when you do that.
Because as you go, it increases volume.
Right.
And I don't want that at all. Because I think that makes the pedals less dynamic, in my opinion.
What do you mean less dynamic?
Well, whenever I do it, I kind of do it the opposite, sort of. I know, it's confusing. So just hear me
does
out.
it going the other way? Or going that way. Starting the chain with the highest drive to boost.
Let's say we're using a JHS hard drive for our first thing.
Okay, that's fine.
And we want to put a boost after it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, if you're going to do a straight up boost, like quote unquote clean boost,
whatever that means,
it's just going to make it louder, right? Like good for solos and stuff like that. But I don't think necessarily stacked. I prefer the higher gain into a lower gain pedal. I like it flip-flopped because I like a lower gain pedal going into a higher gain pedal. It's kind of, in my head, it works kind of like, especially if your amp's clean, you're taking a lower gain like boost or like light overdrive and pushing it into a higher gain pedal, which is acting as an amp that's overdriving already.
Right, so it's almost like a preamp.
It's almost like a preamp. So what I do is I start off with lowest gain, and I go up to a higher gain, and then right after my highest gain, I smack an EQ.
Okay.
And I put an EQ at the very end of that, which I can use for EQ shaping whatever pedals before it, or what I use it for most is I give myself a little bit of bump in the mids, cut a little bit of bass, and I boost my level up just a hair, which will give me a solo boost after it all if my amp is clean.
Okay. So I'm just curious, because we're talking it out. Why don't you put the EQ before everything, shape that into the hardest drive, or the highest gain, I should say?
I think it probably works better as a shaper that way, but I use it less like, which, I mean, you can shape it on either side, really, but...
Because couldn't you just, instead of getting the EQ bump the mids, you just get a pedal for that?
Yeah, you can. I don't always bump the mids. I'm really just bumping that mids for like solo boost stuff, but sometimes I'll leave the EQ completely flat and just bump the level for a quote-unquote clean boost.
Right.
But at the end of my drive section, if my amp is clean, it's just going to give me volume. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. I get my lowest gain up to a high gain, so it's all feeding into each other like preamps kind of. Then once I get to that highest gain, my next pedal is an EQ. I've used clean boost type pedals, you know, like Katana style or RC Booster or whatever in that same place before I found the EQ. But I like to have some type of boost pedal right after that can just boost my volume. If my amp is not clean, it's not going to though, right? If I don't have any headroom left in my amp, it's just going to add overdrive. But a lot of times I, like to play on the edge of breakup. So still we'll have a little bit of headroom left over.
Okay. So to me, you answered, how do you order your drives? You didn't answer, how do you approach gain stacking?
Oh,
that was
cool.
a great segment, but I mean,
cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm tired of talking, so you talk a little bit about how you approach it.
All right. So I would agree with you on that, because before I go on to gain stacking, like, as far as the order I use my drives, I do start with like lighter to more drives, and then at the end I'll have some type of boost. That way I can boost myself out for solos. But for gain stacking, as far as how to approach one drive and meshing those sounds together.
I just got thinking too much about other things, and there we were. Yeah,
It's fine. We're here. So my thing is with gain stacking, you really have to take into account what your drives currently are, and kind of what you mentioned about, lightest drive to more drive. Do you want more of a volume boost on the end, or do you want more of a preamp boost in the front?
right.
And whatever your EQ is now, you need to take that consideration. So, for instance, if you currently have a tube screamer, because that's usually like everyone's first overdrive,
Right.
you probably should get something that's a little more full frequency.
Oh yeah.
You don't want two mid-push pedals.
Yeah.
Regardless of if it's before or after, you're going to want something more full frequency. And then you got to think, well, if I have this full frequency and I have this mid boost, do I want more of that solo thing with the mid boost at the end and totally shape that EQ? Because whether you know it or not, that very last drive you have is going to shape your sound more than any pedal.
Yep.
Right?
That's why I've got that EQ at the end.
Right. So I think it's super important that you're happy with your tone the most with the last pedal in the chain.
Yeah.
As far as drive goes. So that's how I approach it. Now, when I think of gain stacking, I do like drives with character.
Yeah.
So, and that makes it harder because, I have a Timmy and I like it, but it's not really on my board that much.
Yeah.
So when you have let's say a King of Tone or a Blues Breaker style, you have maybe a Con style.
Yep.
You have other mid-pushed, maybe an amp in the box that has some mids. Then it gets real complicated.
Yeah, so now let me jump back in here because now I've figured out what you were asking in the first
no
place.
problem.
Sorry
No
about
problem.
that.
Yeah.
So, I do a lot of the same type of things. So whenever I set that up, I usually like to have my higher drive to be more of a full frequency drive. So it's my last drive in the chain, and then my drives before that, which are, lower drives, lower output drives, I like those to be more of my character overdrives and tones. So that way it can kind of shape into that, and it does shape the sound of my guitar going into that drive that's full frequency, but that full frequency still has the largest impact on my tone. And I like to pick, my favorite full frequency drives. Sometimes I'll have two of those that are pretty similar in drive levels. So then I can swap. One might be a little more mid-pushed, and one might be a little more full frequency. And then maybe I've got one or two boost pedals before that to push into them in different combinations. But I think of those as like preamp kind of character drives going into those two pedals that might be, a little bit different. One more full frequency and one less. So I think, we kind of do it the same type of way.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
And everyone does it different. Like, you add a fuzz, that's going to change everything.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
A treble booster, that's going to change everything.
Yeah, put a wah, a fuzz, a treble booster, all in there at the same time.
With a tube screamer. Good luck.
Yeah, it can be done. It's just a little bit of a headache, right?
It's a challenge.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
All right, see ya.